Hello and welcome to the Data Viom channel. Today we are going to see shortcuts. Shortcuts is one of the most interesting mechanism in Fabric to unify the data from different systems. As part of this tutorial, we will first see what is shortcuts, where we need shortcuts. We will understand what is unified data architecture, the types of shortcuts, internal and external, best practices, data caching, limitation and consideration which you should keep in mind when you are using shortcuts, and a demo of how to create the shortcuts in the Fabric UI. Let's first understand using a scenario. So AB is a data engineer and he had just joined company P, a fast growing business with one big problem. Their data was everywhere, so it was scattered. Some data lived in AWS S3 buckets, some in Azure Data Lake, some in GCP, and a surprising amount was still sitting in old on-prem file shares. Moreover, every team had its own favorite tool, its own storage, its own naming conventions that further complicate the things. AB quickly realized that even answering a simple question like what were last month's sales required lots of manual efforts. You have to log on into the three different cloud portals, download the files, merging them manually, and hoping nothing had changed overnight. It was messy, slow, painful, and in fact unreliable. After months of frustration, the leadership team in Company B decided to adopt Microsoft Fabric as their unified data platform. The promise was simple: one lake, one copy of data, one place to analyze everything. AB was excited, but keep on wondering, how are we going to bring all this scattered data together without copying terabytes every single day? As part of Fabric training, AB discovered something interesting: shortcuts. Shortcuts let company P reference data stored in other clouds without moving it. So no data movement, no data duplication, no pipelines, no waiting hours for ingestion jobs. Just a clean virtual link. Suddenly, everything changed. The AWS S3 sales files, the GCP marketing exports, the Azure operational logs, all appeared inside Fabric as if they were local delta tables. And that's the power of shortcuts. AB didn't have to rewrite pipelines or redesign storage. Nothing needs to be changed. Fabric simply pointed to the data where it already lived. And that is something great about shortcuts. The monthly report also got changed. Every month, Company P struggled to produce a consolidated business report. It took 3 analysts, 2 days of time, and a lot of coffee. But with shortcuts now, sales data from AWS, customer data from Azure SQL, campaign data from BigQuery, all showed up in near real time in the lakehouse. AB built a single semantic model in Power BI, refreshed it, and the entire report was ready in minutes, not days, saving considerable amount of time and increase the efficiency of the colleagues. Leadership was stunned and questioned. Wait, we didn't move any data? Nope, AB smiled. And that's, my friend, the power of shortcuts in Fabric. So, hope this has given you a context where we use shortcuts and what problem they address in the modern world when we have so much scattered data, especially in big enterprises. Let's further understand more about shortcuts. So shortcuts, nothing but references, symbolic links, or pointers to storage. Data is not copied, read at a fast speed from source, and thus avoid data duplication, saving lots of storage. One lake just store metadata and use caching if enable, further improving performance. No impact on source data when shortcut is deleted, and that is something great about them. So even if you delete the shortcuts, there is no impact on source data because they are just references, just like pointers. And Fabric shortcuts resemble the data sharing concept. So if you are from the Databricks world, there is a concept of data sharing where you can copy the data from another cloud without copying any kind of data. And so both of them are quite similar. You can create a shortcut that references another shortcut. And that is something interesting about them. But the hierarchy respects the target location capacity and certain placement rules that you should keep in mind. So you can create shortcut on the top of another shortcut. And that shortcuts is one of the way that unify your data across domains, clouds, and accounts by making one lake the single virtual data lake for your entire enterprise. Few things you should always remember. A shortcut never points to a database engine. It only points to the delta files behind that item in one lake. So although the engine used by SQL database in Fabric and warehouse different compared to lakehouse, but the underlying data structure where the data is actually stored in one lake, that is same. And shortcut always points to storage rather than the item or the engine. So when you create a warehouse or SQL database in Fabric, even though they look like the databases, inside Fabric, they actually store their data as delta files in one lake. I already explained that before. So when you create a shortcut to a SQL database in Fabric, you are actually not connecting to the SQL server. You are connecting to the delta files that SQL use behind the scenes. Always keep in mind. And because that is the source of confusion I have seen, those who try to understand Fabric, you are not pointing to the SQL database, rather than you are pointing to the delta files that the SQL use behind the scenes. And it's true about every kind of shortcut we create. Now, shortcuts can only be created in Lakehouse and KQL databases. And in the Lakehouse, you can create shortcuts for files and tables. We will see everything in a demo. And for KQL database, you can create the shortcuts under the dedicated shortcut folder, which KQL databases each database already has. And this is again a diagram where you can see the power of the unified data architecture. So you can have data on AWS, you can have data on SharePoint, Snowflake, Databricks, Dataverse, Azure, even on GCP. You can use Fabric as a unified data system, and then you can do any kind of analysis without copying any data. Now there are three basic mechanisms we use in creating unified data architecture in Fabric. One is, of course, we already have seen, it's shortcuts. Another is mirroring and pipelines. So these are the three techniques used in Microsoft Fabric to support a unified data architecture. There is a separate tutorial on mirroring where you can explore more about it. Shortcuts and mirrorings are a bit different, and this both serve different purpose. Let's see now the types of shortcuts. So with shortcuts are of two types, internal and external. So if there is already data which you have ingested in one lake, maybe in the lake house, you can create a shortcut in another lake house and reference that data without copying the data, avoiding the data duplication within the one lake. Or they can be external on external cloud providers. Let's see each one of them. So internal one lake shortcuts allow you to reference data within existing Fabric items within same organization. And that includes KQL databases, lakehouses, mirror Azure Databricks catalogs, mirror databases, semantic models, SQL databases, warehouses, and that's sometimes source of confusion, but these are the target. Like if you want to create a shortcut, these can be the source of the shortcut data. But as I already mentioned, shortcuts can be only created inside lakehouses or KQL database. You can't create shortcut in warehouse or database or other types of items. External one lake shortcuts, can you can reference data on ADLS or on blob storage, Amazon S3, that is native hosted on AWS cloud. And there is another one, Amazon S3 compatible shortcuts that connects to third party storage systems that implement the S3 API, but they are not hosted on AWS. So that's the difference between the two, the Amazon S3 shortcut, and they are hosted on AWS cloud, but the Amazon S3 compatible shortcut, they are not hosted on AWS, and they just implement the S3 API. Google Cloud Storage shortcut, database shortcut, Dataverse shortcut, Iceberg shortcut. So now you can create a shortcut even on the Iceberg format data that's stored in the third party, stored in the other cloud providers like Azure, AWS, GCP. OneDrive shortcut also you can create, that is currently in preview, and SharePoint folder also that is in the preview. So those items that is under preview, uh, they are not in general availability, so you should avoid using them in production. But I just want to highlight them, and soon they will be available in the general GA. Now, one question which arise in anyone's mind when we use the Fabric shortcuts, what happen when the source schema change or any data is updated or deleted in source? How much time it will take to refresh the data uh, in the Fabric? Of course, they are just symbolic links, but is there any kind of latency involved? So let's understand that, and that's understanding this is quite critical, because when you are going to choose like what kind of architecture you need in production, these things are quite important to understand. So when a new column is added in source, this may take currently 5 to 10 minutes, and again due to metadata refresh cycles. So what happened in Fabric, there is metadata refresh cycle concept it use to refresh the data, and that can take 5 to 10 minutes. So keep in mind, update, insert, deletes to data, that also there's a short delay of minutes, again due to the metadata refresh cycles. If a table or column is deleted in the source, the shortcut may still reference it until the metadata refresh complete. So again, few minutes delay. And data volumes will further impact metadata sync. So if you have terabytes or petabytes of data in the source, shortcuts might not be a great option in that case. Why? Because Microsoft Fabric prioritizes performance and cost optimization over instant refresh. Okay, so it prioritizes performance and cost optimization rather than instant refreshing of data from the source. And you can say it's a limitation, but yeah, it might not be suitable for few of the use cases. Now let's understand about metadata refresh cycles, which refresh the metadata of the shortcuts. It's not on a fixed interval, rather it's on demand when the shortcut data is accessed. And Fabric check metadata when a query touches the shortcut, a new Spark session starts, a data frame is created, a SQL endpoint queries the table, cached metadata may delay updates. And as per the discussions on the Fabric forum, the shortcuts, when you create the shortcuts using the warehouse data in a lake house, they have the longest delays of 5 to 10 minutes. That is something you should keep in mind. Whatever I am talking here, that is on the current state of Fabric ecosystem, and that might change in the future. So keep an eye on that. But metadata refresh cycle, it is something that you should understand before you design a new architecture using shortcuts in Fabric. Let's see now best practices. Use shortcuts for small and medium data sets, not for large data sets. That is the first and foremost you should keep in mind. It's ideal for large or infrequently queried data sets where copying would be inefficient. So that looks like a kind of contradiction. But what I mean, if you are doing it, suppose you need some data on monthly or maybe on weekly or ad hoc basis, even if that is large, that's not a problem because you're not using it frequently. Okay, so just one, don't get confused between the first and second. What I mean, like suppose you want some data on daily basis, then it's not suitable for large data sets. But infrequent large set, yeah, you can use. Use Parquet data format over CSV JSON files in source if you have choice. So if you have control at the source side, then it makes sense to use Parquet and delta format rather than using CSV or JSON files. Of course, sometimes you don't have choice as you don't control the source. Why? Because it's columnar, compressed, schema awareness, so more efficient. Now CSV JSON are fine for ingestion, not a problem if you are just ingesting the data in CSV JSON format, but they are not great for analytics or repeatable reads. And that's why whenever we read JSON CSV data in a lakehouse, we write it in the delta format. You can leverage Fabric caching. Now it's not required for Azure as it's a native connection with the Azure, and one lake is built on ADLS storage only, so not required. But for cross cloud connections, you can use Fabric caching. You can enable that. We will see in the demo. And use a shortcut when you want instant zero copy access data that is stored in a scalable lake like ADLS, S3, GCS, OneLake without ingestion. And you should use mirroring when the source is database. So whenever the source is any relational database or even non-relational one, that time you should use mirroring. And using naming standards is key to avoid accidental deletion of shortcuts. Use principle of least privilege while giving the access, and that is the RBAC is always the standard way from the security perspective uh, to give the access to the right people and the right amount of access. So use the principle of least privileges. Least privileges should be given. That that you should keep in mind. Let's see data caching. Shortcut caching can reduce egress costs associated with cloud, cross-cloud data access. So caching can reduce the cost, and as the files are read through external shortcut, the files are stored in a cache for the Fabric workspace. Okay, so you need to enable caching at the workspace level. Keep that in mind. And subsequent read requests are served from the cache rather than the remote storage provider. So making things fast. The retention period for cache file can be set from 1 to 28 days currently in Fabric, and each time the file is accessed, the retention period is reset. Okay, so it is a resetting of retention period that happen when someone accesses the file. And if the file in storage provider is more recent than the file in the cache, it will check the metadata basically, and then it decide whether that cache data needs to be updated or not. Otherwise, it will use the data from the cache only. Individual files greater than 1 GB size aren't cached. So 1 GB is a substantial one, but yeah, keep that in mind that there is a limit. You can't cache GBs of data. If it's just more than 1 GB, then the caching, even though it's enabled, won't be used. And shortcut caching is currently supported for GCS, S3, SC compatible, and on-premises data gateway shortcuts. Okay, so not for all. Now let's see limitation and considerations. They are good to know. So the maximum number of shortcuts per fabric item is 100K. And when we say fabric item, it can be apps like houses, warehouse, reports, and other items. But 100K is quite a big number, so I think need not worry. Unless everybody creating their own shortcuts, which really happen because we do have governance in big organizations. The maximum number of shortcuts in a single one lake path is 10. That is something good to know. So there's a limit of 10 in a single one lake path. The maximum number of direct shortcuts in shortcut links is 5. So when I say direct, it means I am creating shortcut on the top of source data, not on the top of another shortcut. Okay. And one lake shortcut names, parent paths and target paths can't contain percentage or plus characters. That is one of the restriction we have. Shortcuts don't support non-Latin characters. Another restriction. Lineage for shortcuts to data warehouses and semantic models isn't currently available. So you do have lineage view in Fabric. Again a great point about Fabric that provide the lineage, and you can easily understand how the data is flowing. But that is not available for shortcuts created to the data warehouse and semantic models currently, and I'm sure that might change. A Fabric shortcut syncs with the soul almost instantly, but as I already mentioned, the propagation time might vary due to data source performance, cached views, or network connectivity issues. And it might take up a minute for a table API to recognize new shortcuts. Another key limitation you should keep in mind. So if you create a new shortcut, there might be a delay up to a minute for a table API to recognize new shortcuts.